we were raised in the most loving home with 2 Cuban immigrant parents. There was a definite like open line of communication, and our mom really encouraged us to talk to her, and so did our dad to them about everything, and we did. But mental health specifically was not a part of that conversation.
Especially because of dad seeing so much trauma, covering war zones and, you know, working in the line of work that he did, when his company suggested that he take psychological help and evaluation after seeing so much trauma in his life as a journalist. I think sometimes when a therapist is presented, it means something's wrong with you and something bad happened. And
at that time.
Right, and you're ill and you need to fix it. But now mom and dad are seeing that therapy is just a way to educate yourself.
Yeah, it's the conversation has totally changed. But when we were growing up, it wasn't. It was super taboo, and I don't know if it was our like Latino culture, plus like just where they are in their like line of generation, just like the combo that it was just off the table, just like not something that we needed or considered.
Yeah.
I even remember thinking like, in terms of even just like self-awareness, like we still adore both of our parents so much as like their favorite colors. Whenever we would have to choose a color crayon in school, we've all told each other at different times that like we would choose a purple for dad and a green for mom so that we didn't like leave one of them out.
Or folders.
Like, yeah. And we talked to them and stuff. So our way of thinking was just like, what would mom and dad do? And I remember being 18 in college, away from home for the first time, and having to make a lot of decisions on my own for the first time. And I remember thinking like, okay, if I don't make a choice based on how mom would do it, I am not wrong. She's a very practical thinker, and I think I make decisions based off like emotion, and I was like learning that at that time. And I remember thinking like, this is not what mom would do in this situation, but it doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make me wrong. And that was kind of like my first just like click in my brain of just like that conversation for myself. And it took until I was like 18 to even consider those things.
I think I'm still considering them, and not even just mom and dad as a very close family. I think I still consider that with like you guys too. Like if I might want to do something different than my sisters and my parents, that because we all function differently. We all are very different than mom and dad and different than each other. But because we were raised such a certain way, in a beautiful way, I carry like a shame or guilt if I do something that I know you guys might not do, even though I'm great. I'm not doing anything bad. Like I'm not doing illegal things, but there's something in me that like thinks, even though you guys aren't judging me, I have the judgment in the back of my head, like holding over, like mom, dad, Madi, Carmela, what would they think of this? Even if it's just something different.
I think that's something we're all three actively working on every single day, is realizing that we heal differently. We grieve differently. We've gone through the same losses in our family, really heavy deaths that have really impacted us. And it's crazy to see how the three of us handle death and grief vastly differently. Mm-hmm. And now as we get older, we're realizing, oh, I gotta honor the way you're gonna go about that, you're gonna go about that, and the way I wanna go about that. And it's okay. Giving myself the grace to say, it's okay if I'm gonna grieve differently than how you guys do.
Yeah.
Right or wrong.
Yeah, I remember learning that for the first time too, because we were raised like as a unit. We did all of the same things, had all of the same friends. I remember when we first moved to LA from each different city that we were living in and lived together, we were in our early 20s and realizing like, oh, okay, we're not just like sisters in our home growing up. Like we are three individual grown and growing women that have different personalities, different desires, different ways that we're going to handle things. And learning that for each other and giving each other that space to like be our individual selves was definitely something that we had to work on, because there was just tension in our differences because we were raised as such a unit. When we realized like who we were individually,
it felt like you were doing something wrong.
There was tension, and we had to actively learn like, okay, you're not wrong for doing something different than me, and I'm not wrong for doing something different than you. And that was like, it's still a conversation that we have.
The same way as little girls, I had to, for school, get a green folder and a purple folder because mom and dad. And if we were to tell that to our mom, and which we have, she's like, that's bizarre. She's like, I don't know why you girls feel like you need to have mom and dad. Like, they never instilled that in us, the same way that, like, if I stayed out too late, when I was 20 and I thought you were in bed and were going to judge me, you'd be like, I don't care. But like, we have these own self-proclaimed, like,
subconscious
and we all do it.
expectations.
And like, even though if I talk to you guys about it, you're like, I never said that, I don't care, you're fine, like, no one's judging you for that. Still, I need to get a green and a purple folder. It's so weird. It's I don't know how to explain it. And we've talked about it, and we don't know where it stems from. And we found out later on in life that we all three do that.
Yeah. And that was all from us learning and like getting more comfortable with our own selves and like being able to talk about things like that, because we were the generation that started that conversation. Like, I think so specifically, mom and dad being immigrants from Cuba, their parents trying to give them a better life than they had in Cuba. And then us being our generation where we were given a better life than mom and dad had. And we had the opportunities just to even pursue our dreams. That is our like specific place just in the world. And I think because of that lineage, and I know our generation just like specifically were able to just open up conversations that our parents just didn't have.
You're right. It's almost like a luxury. Like, we can afford to think about these things because they were just thinking about survival.
Yeah.
Like, just survive. Just put food on the table, make money, go to sleep, and do it again the next day when you wake up.
They didn't have a label for anxiety. They were just like, oh, I thought you just live with this.
Right. And life in America was vastly different than life in Cuba. So it looked way better. And it felt way better just at that base level. So I think we all, and really most Americans are all kids of immigrants. When you just go back a couple generations, we all are. Everybody watching this video, you're likely either the son, grandson, granddaughter, great-great-great-granddaughter of immigrants, and people who in our generational lineage, survival was just the first need. Yeah. And you're right. It's almost like now, okay, we're here. We're the new generation where we can afford to really think about the nuances and the intricacies of why we feel this way. And I think that's the biggest reason why we shouldn't hold a grudge against the older generations for not having this vocabulary, not knowing how to speak things the way that we do and use the words that we do. We have to give them grace because they were just surviving.
Yeah.
Now we have the luxury of like, okay, we're here. Everything's good. Yeah. Now let's dissect it. Yeah.
It is a luxury when you think about it, and you think about it from the point of view of our ancestors, like what you just said. And creating that space of not being frustrated with, like, say, mom not having the language that we do is still a learning process. Mm-hmm. But creating a boundary that like is okay is something that we had to create with our parents and teach them.
Specifically how you even said just basing decisions off of pure practicality and pure logic. That's a survivalist trait. And that's how mom is, and that's how she'll always be. She's practical and reasonable. But now you as a new human, your own human, is thinking, wait, I'm kind of heart-based. I kind of go off of my gut, my intuition, and my emotions and my feelings. Is that wrong because my mom's not like that? And it can kind of feel wrong. It's a step away from an example that your parents have shown you, especially when you really respect and love your mom the way we all do. And so that's why it can feel a little bit weird when you're deciding to step into this type of living that's different than what was modeled to you.
Right.
But we have to be able to do that with strength and know that it's nothing against our family and it's nothing dishonorable. And
we talk about that a lot, about how wrong it feels to like even feel, and not like angry with our parents for like certain things that we just like learn, but I'm trying to articulate what I have in my brain.
No, I was thinking,
but
is it resentment?
But or just realizing that it doesn't have to be resentment. Like they could have taught us a behavior because that they were doing their best, and that could have
That's
been
all they knew.
something that we developed, and maybe it became a negative thing. But realizing that it came from our upbringing, but like not being resentful of our parents for it, you know, and just
feel resentful for anything. Like the things that we realized later on.
Yeah.
I don't feel resentful for anything that we didn't discuss as kids and stuff. We had such a blessed childhood growing up. And I think maybe as adults, if there's anything they were like, why didn't we, like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what I could say negative towards it, because it's things discovering now that maybe we could have, I don't even know.
I think the duality lies in the fact that there was a way we were raised, and subconsciously cultivated something in our minds that we're a team, we're a family, we're a unit. That is true. But you're also this individual person. And that doesn't need to be a combative setup
it can just
at
exist.
all. You can be part of this very tight knit family, but also very well aware of how you are an individual. And sometimes it feels like you're choosing between the needs of the collective of a family and the needs of yourself. And sometimes it feels like those can be opposing, especially the more that you get older, the more independent you become. So I think that's where the duality can become a little bit tricky, but realizing that you can root for and put care into the well-being of both, the well-being of the family and the well-being of yourself. And it's really goes back to that, you know, put on your oxygen mask before you help others put on theirs. Because we love each other so much, let's say we're all on a boat and like one of you, man overboard, somebody's like sinking and drowning. My instinct, it would normally be, oh, if you're drowning, I'm gonna get right in the water with you, I'm gonna drown with you, I'm gonna, you know, but I can't help you from the water. I have to stay on solid ground on the boat to be able to throw you a life raft. My instinct is to want to get in the water with you and like, you know, fight the rip currents and like drown with you. Like if you're sinking, I'm gonna sink with you. But I really think part of mental well-being is figuring out how can I stay on the boat to be able to offer resources, throwing you a life raft, but also calling in professionals that'll save you better than I ever could. And so I think sometimes maybe it's being raised Catholic, you know, or culturally, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you need to prioritize the whole or other people in your family that you love so much, almost to prove that love and to just proclaim that love is prioritize them over yourself. But now what I've been trying to do is just rewire, oh, I am just one of those 5 people that I love to death. And I'll do anything for that girl, but also them, and also those girls and mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so you're just one of them. There doesn't need to be them over you or even you above them.
Which is, it just goes back to what I was saying about mom and dad. I feel like if they heard what we were saying, they would be like again, they'd be like, how did you 3 think like this? And dad put everything into football terms. They raised us as a team. It was all or none. But they also really did highlight our individual spirits, and they were so proud of uplifting us as individuals too. So we're all saying the same thing, and I'm going back and thinking, though, they really did embrace all of our individual little quirks and things that we had, and they were proud of those, and they made us proud of our individuality too. But somehow in this thing, we 3 developed this, I don't want to say toxic, but we came up with this on our own, because we discovered later on that we all were like
true.
this.
It wasn't even imposed
I don't
by
know
them.
how we got there from the way that mom and dad did raise us, that we all had this pressure to.
Would you use the word codependent?
Yeah, in our family, yeah,
Like
because
3
we
of
were
us.
all or none. We was everything. You didn't go to a sleepover unless me and Madi were invited to the sleepover. I didn't have a friend that didn't become best friends with you guys.
True.
Everything was together.
True.
And it was. And to the point where I've always said, I think I'm working on a pretty lousy friend to other people, because I was raised that I didn't need other friends, because I had you too. Blood over everything. You guys were my friends. If a friend was rude to me or lied to me, I could cut them off like nothing, because I had you guys. So I was dependent on your friendships. And so to this day, if a friend like does something that I don't like, it's so easy for me to cut people out of my life. And I'm working on like loving people's flaws and not being like, that kind of gave me the ick, so you're not my friend anymore, because I have 2 permanent friends. So that is definitely a codependency thing that I think we were raised.
And I think going back to like what you were saying too, I think like because of the way that we were raised, I want to be well. I want to take care of myself for me, but also for you and for you, you know? And I think that's a really special thing, that we just have a bond that is so unspoken and just
it used to feel selfish, I think, to kind of look within and say, what are my needs? What do I need to do to prioritize my well-being? But now I'm seeing that if you can do that, if you can take care of yourself as an individual first, it's a gift to you guys. It's a gift because you know that I'm okay. And
you're proving though that you still have that. Like you said, the thing that makes you not feel selfish about putting yourself first is because it does benefit us. Like you're actually, I don't know if you realize, you're still doing the exact same thing. Like how you still feel selfish, but the only thing that makes you not feel selfish about putting yourself first is the thought that, well, it is going to still help my sisters.
So
like
true.
You're actually not putting yourself first.
You're right. Like I'm only allowing me to put me first because it'll benefit them in some way.
Like you still are doing
that,
even though you're trying to say right now, like I'm okay with putting myself first because it's for you guys. Like it's the exact same. Like we are actively working on this.
You're right. Actively.
We still have more to discover. We don't even know what's going to hit us next that we're going to have to work through. But like, yeah, just seeing you say that.
That was crazy.
We really, really had to learn what it was like to be sisters with another adult woman who's not just like the kid you saw growing up.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of work because we are very different and we are also very alike. And I think that in the ways that we are alike, or I think like we presented for a long time to our friends and people that knew us as so similar, as just like the Zumbado sisters, like
surface level,
the unit. And so like not even breaking apart from that, but just growing like through that into who we became, because we were still growing. We still didn't even know who we fully were when we were learning about each other.
You're also learning yourself as a new
and so
person.
it was like that experience forced us to like really see who we are individually in this sisterhood and who each other is and how we can help each other, lift each other up without like just letting our differences
get in the way.
Yeah, get in the way.
I think too, specifically, like if you're thinking of an exact thing that made us have to like separate more, was dating. Like I think that's something you don't share with your sisters, obviously. To an extreme too, where I was dating someone and I would bring Carmela around trying to set him up with his friends, and he started calling us and introducing us to his friends as his sister wives. And I remember having to sit down with you and being like, hey, when he says that, don't laugh along. It's not cute. Like that's one thing I'm not going to share. I don't think it's funny. Obviously, he loved having two girls going around with him, but like we always were intending on setting Carmela up with like his friends. And then one time he said the joke and we laughed along and we're like, yeah, basically at this point. And then I remember every time Carmela came out with us, he introduced everyone as, we're his sister wives. And I stopped dating him. And I think, and that was when we were living in Kingsley in that apartment. And I was like, whoa, I need to compartmentalize this. And to the point where the next guy I dated, I was gonna set you up with his best friend. And I was like, actually, never mind. Can you not? Like, I actually don't want you around the guy
we
I'm
had
dating.
to learn what creating boundaries looked like.
I had to figure that out.
Was when we learned that.
That's what I mean. That was the point.
It was boundaries within each other's lives and for ourselves and what we needed, and learning to respect those with each other.
And not take it personally.
Yeah, and not exactly.
And just realize like, okay,
not get into a fight because you wanted to go have a drink with your friend without your two sisters.
Which we would feel so much shame for can I go get a drink without inviting them? Because they're still on the cat. Like that still, like I always feel like, it's so sad because we had to get so specific with each other. Mm-hmm. And
but
people
that's not
normally
sad.
don't have those conversations.
But that's what you should do. And you shouldn't take it personally. And you should be willing to realize the things that you need for yourself and the people that love you, not take it personally and not make it a bad thing.
And not make them have to guess
what you need.
Yeah. I think the older we got, we were like, hey, take it or leave it. I don't mean to offend you in any way. But
nothing personal. I know
this is where my brain's at. And I think we've gotten really good at doing like judgment-free listening. Mm-hmm. And just like no shame, no judgment. This is me.
And that took a while.
Still we have lapses. We might get our feelings hurt. We might realize someone's doing something without me. But there's little hiccups, obviously. And then luckily we are so good at communicating now that even if you did hurt someone's feeling, you can be like, hey, again, that wasn't personal. I needed to do this for myself. And then I feel like we're always like, okay, yeah, I just was sad in the moment, but yeah, I get it.
I think what I think what we've learned is that because we're so close, we naturally have had shared friend groups. All of our friends are friends with each other and friends with all three of us. And so it's kind of enmeshed the way our friendships are set up. And of course that translates into dating. If you're close to me or close to my sisters, just by proxy. But we've realized that when we need to set boundaries and need to establish our own friend groups, and that could be a healthy thing, the conversation becomes about separation, and that can tend to have a negative connotation that we need space or I need to go do something by myself. And in the beginning, it was sensitive with us where we realized we had to say out loud, I think I just need to belong to this friend group by myself. Like, I'm actually not going to invite you to drinks tonight, even though I could right now.
And
you're sitting across from me.
Negative, that it would help our relationship together, because it's like, if I have space for myself and am able to grow and do things just like separately, I'll have more space for us as sisters.
Yeah, and we had to be careful to just not be offended.
That was awesome.